From KOB4, this is Eye on New Mexico.
Good Sunday morning. I hope all of you are enjoying the final day of this holiday weekend. We know a lot of folks traveled here to New Mexico to celebrate Thanksgiving with friends and family, and local tourism leaders have a new plan to get even more travelers to visit the Land of Enchantment, and not just during the holidays. Thanks for joining us this morning for Eye on New Mexico. I'm Griffin Rushton. Albuquerque already has a robust tourism economy, but industry leaders know there's absolutely room to grow, and that's easier said than done. That's why Visit Albuquerque, the city's own tourism marketing organization, is out with a new roadmap, a 10-year destination master plan, offering strategies to elevate Albuquerque's existing tourism opportunities and recommendations for new tourism opportunities. Visit Albuquerque worked with more than 2,300 stakeholders, including business leaders, government officials, and residents, to assemble this comprehensive plan. And I sat down with a nonprofit leader for an in-depth discussion on how this plan could take Albuquerque to the next level. We are here in studio with the president and CEO of Visit Albuquerque, Tanya Armenta. Thank you so much for sitting down with us to talk about this pretty monumental plan you guys have put together. Before we dive into the deep details of everything, I want to talk a little bit about tourism in Albuquerque here in 2024. You know, we had some rough years with the pandemic. What are we looking at right now? Is it safe to say things have rebounded since the pandemic?
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about tourism. It's such an important pillar of our community from an economic standpoint. So no doubt everyone knows what happens to visitation during the pandemic, halted, and for small businesses and those businesses that relied on tourism, just a really tough time. But an opportunity for us in the last few years, there was that pent-up demand. People were, once the pandemic, subsided, there was a desire to get out and they really appreciated tourism so much more, those experiences. And so that pent-up demand, we had a really strong back half of 22. 23 was really great. And 24 has continued. They're starting to see a little bit of that leveling off, that pent-up demand. But no doubt it's been a number of strong years for Albuquerque and for our state for tourism.
So let's talk about that strategic planning. So you guys have a 10-year plan. You guys just released it. Tell me a little bit about what was the big idea behind this plan?
Well, tourism currently in Albuquerque is about a $2 billion industry, and for the state over $8 million. This is an opportunity for us to really look at, okay, right now there's about 6.7 million overnight visitors. Can we grow that? We've had an opportunity through something called the Albuquerque Tourism Marketing District to grow our marketing, and so that's increased awareness and appeal for the city. And so we're in places, in airports and outdoor advertising in different places that we've never been before. So that's increasing the awareness and the appeal of Albuquerque, which not only benefits tourism, but it benefits overall economic development and business for the city as well. But the question we asked ourselves with that additional marketing was, are we delivering on our brand promise? So we're out there marketing and selling Albuquerque. When visitors come here, what does that experience look like? Is it as strong as we'd like it to be? And in talking to the industry, our community, there was kind of a resounding, we could be stronger. There's more that we could be doing to make sure that visitor experience is something that we're very proud of. We're not only meeting the expectation of visitors, but we're exceeding them. And so that's what this Destination Master Plan is really all about, is this opportunity to look to this next, for a 10-year vision. And let's talk about really Albuquerque realizing its full potential.
Visit Albuquerque partnered with global real estate company JLL to build the Destination Master Plan, something the company has done for several other U.S. cities, including Raleigh, North Carolina, which is on year 7 of its 10-year plan.
Really what we focus on in a project like this is trying to really look at what are all the most special attributes, if you will, of Albuquerque, and also where are the opportunities. So it's a plan to try to look at where we have opportunities. And when I say improvement might mean investment, or it may mean future development, but where are the opportunities when you think about Albuquerque as a destination in particular? So when you think about the visitor economy, for Albuquerque. How do we continue to evolve that, whether it's meetings and conventions or individual travel or people that are coming to events like the Balloon Fest? I mean, those sort of things, right? So it's all of that sort of looking at where the future is and how can everybody collectively support the vibrancy of the visitor economy.
The Destination Master Plan is broken up into 8 large sections or pillars to better organize 10 years worth of ideas and recommendations. Let's start with that first big pillar, elevating the existing products. Tell me a little bit the vision behind this pillar, or what you guys are imagining here.
So JLL, in talking to these 2,300 stakeholders and through the process, identified that Albuquerque, we've got great culture, great breathtaking landscape, outdoor recreation, cuisine, and really what was identified is that there's much more we could be doing with those experiences, so that travelers really, let's take from cultural tourism. Is there more? There's a desire to have more indigenous, cultural experiences, and so is there an opportunity for our industry to work with the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center and area pueblos to create and offer some additional indigenous tourism experiences, those cultural experiences. Route 66 is another opportunity. We have the longest intact stretch of Route 66 here, and JLL identified that there's more that we could be doing, that's really something that resonates with travelers, that history and that tradition of Route 66, and with the centennial just around the corner, an opportunity for us to build on that. Culinary tourism, we've got a great cuisine, and it's something that's very unique. So I think in tourism, what I'd say overall is that a destination, this is important to keep in mind, that it is a competitive landscape. Cities have some of the same experiences. You can find certain things in every city in America. What makes Albuquerque unique? What are the differentiators? And really JLL saying lean into those, because that is what's going to make someone choose your destination over another destination. And so our cuisine is an example of that we have such a tremendous cuisine that locals love. Can we create experiences that offer that to visitors a little bit easier? So there was a notion of creating trails and culinary trails, culinary packages, so that you can experience something here, plus you can take it home in a much easier fashion than what we do today. Those are just some examples of some of those products. And outdoor recreation is another area that we've made a lot of progress over the last 10 years, 10 to 15 years, in terms of making that residents love this place. They recreate, that's one of the things we love about our home. But how accessible is that to visitors? And we've had a lot of outfitters and guides and tours that have come on in the last 10 years, but JLL, and talking to stakeholders, identified that there is more that could be done there as well.
I'm curious, I like that idea of trails. I'm curious, what are some of the other ideas or suggestions you guys are putting on the table when it comes to, taking what we're already doing well and just making it easier for tourists to access?
Elevating it. I think, so again, on the food aspect, the fact that we have the official state question, red or green, how fun it is to figure out, what the preference is. So again, can we make that experience when we think about, let's take a downtown traveler. It's been talked about, somebody who's coming here for a meeting and convention. How accessible is that to someone who's coming to downtown Albuquerque to experience our great New Mexican cuisine? The notion of, can we work with farmers and brewers and those in the wine industry to create more of that? There's some farm to table, but is there more that could be done here to really make that an offering where we have a variety of options for travelers when they come here? So I think just making it easy for travelers to experience, thinking about how you market that. So the trails and the packages help with that marketing, so that really resonates and creates that brand identity around just that example around culinary tourism.
As she mentioned, the plan identified the upcoming Route 66 Centennial Celebration in 2026 as a major tourism opportunity for the city. Tell me how are you guys working to, elevate that really milestone celebration?
Well, and that's an example of something that was in the plan. We were already working on it, but it was something that JLL did say, hey, this is, just to make it clear, this is a really wonderful opportunity. I think for us not to just think about the centennial, but think about lasting impacts. So we talk about that is the 18-mile stretch is Albuquerque's Main Street. It's, you know, Central Avenue connecting us, so many various entertainment districts and components that visitors experience, but our residents as well. So the lasting opportunities that come from this as we celebrate Route 66. We're working with city leaders, with the Arts and Culture Division of the City of Albuquerque. We're very close to kind of introducing a full website to celebrate Route 66. We're working with the state of New Mexico and the tourism department, and there's an opportunity. They've granted a lot of money to various organizations to support Route 66. So I think there's a really wonderful opportunity with the state, the city, our office, many others working on this Route 66 Centennial, a wonderful opportunity for us to invite both domestic, and I'm really excited about international tourism. You know, 2026 not only is the centennial, but FIFA will be, the World Cup will be happening. It's the 250th celebration of America, of the United States. So there's a lot that from an international tourism will be of interest also to come to the States and experience.
Absolutely. I think that segues perfectly to the next kind of big pillar, events and festivals. Something we know that there's already a lot of in Albuquerque, whether it's at the Convention Center, Balloon Fiesta Park. Tell me, it sounds like you guys think that there's room to grow here.
Right.
We'll find out what events and festivals could be on the verge of a glow up after the break, and we'll hear why tourism leaders say investing in our city's visitors can make life better for everyone. We'll be right back. I think that segues perfectly to the next kind of big pillar, events and festivals. Something we know that there's already a lot of in Albuquerque, whether it's at the Convention Center, Balloon Fiesta Park. Tell me, it sounds like you guys think that there's room to grow here.
Right, right. So many, you know, it's from a tourism standpoint, I said 6.7 million overnight visitors in Albuquerque, $2 billion industry for Albuquerque alone. But a lot of times, well, there's a couple of signature events that our locals just think of, and when they think of tourism, they just think of those signature events, and it's wonderful because we are really lucky for those events to call Albuquerque home. But we do think there are a number of other events that JLO kind of identified. Hey, they're right there. That they maybe have regional draw right now, but could they have national draw, and maybe even into the future? Could they have global draw if there was just a little more effort and focus and support that was offered to those organizations? So I think we no doubt know that when we look at a calendar, we feel like there's so many wonderful events happening here. We hope that we can help draw some more visitation to some of those events if it's of interest to the event organizer. And that was an important component during this discussion as well. Not every event is interested in being a visitor event. And so that'll be an important discussion with some of those event organizers in the coming months and years.
You know, I'm curious, what are some of those regional events that you guys identified as being, you know, potentially being able to go to the next level?
I think so no doubt we know the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta, the Gathering of Nations, are drawing visitors here. And from both a domestic and an international perspective, there is an opportunity, I think, with things like the Flamenco Festival, and the opportunity that outside of Spain, this really is the strongest, you know, place for flamenco experience. So could we continue to cultivate that? Some of that has already happened. You're able to experience that throughout the year, but could we help grow the Flamenco Festival? Is there an opportunity to grow something like the Mariachi Spectacular or the Lowrider Show, things that are really unique to our culture, that have the opportunity just to kind of move that visitation, to increase visitation?
You know, I'm curious, one thing Tanya brought up, she mentioned that you had said, you know, one thing that Albuquerque doesn't have that a lot of other cities you've seen is these week-long cultural festivals, or these kind of cultural celebrations. You know, I'm curious if you can talk about, you know, what you guys are envisioning there, or what's kind of the recommendation there.
Well, there's some events that exist now that probably have potential, and without naming them specifically, but there's events that have potential to be more than one-day events, right? And so you think about things, I might mention one, and it, again, is more of an example. There's a lot of great ones, but the Lowrider Festival, for example, or that, you know, that event, right, has a great following. People come to that, good cross-section of people. Well, what if that was more than kind of one day? What if that became a multiple day experience, right? What if you came on a Thursday and maybe left on a Sunday and you had activities throughout? And so we think there's opportunities to create programming with current events and then potentially look at a new signature event. So building something, and the goal that we have, which we really think, of course, Balloon Fiesta does this, but you want to have an event where people go, well, of course it's in Albuquerque. So when they hear about the event, they think, well, of course it's in Albuquerque, and we want to go there, and it's designed to build. You think, Griffin, about things like, South by Southwest or, other events like this. I think the Balloon Fiesta, by the way, is a great, literally example of that would essentially, it should be put up there in a top 5 probably in the country, right? So the question then becomes, how do we have more? And how do we develop more? And from a tourism perspective, how do we actually invest more? Because if you think about tourism dollars, you tend to think, where are we going to drive the highest return? And we think one of the areas of investment certainly is going to be what Tanya mentioned, and that is investing in expanding programming for current events or bringing in new. And when I say events, it's a little bit different than meetings and conventions. So these are annual events that would begin to be really sort of shape Albuquerque's future.
So I think when we're talking about events, I think, it goes hand in hand with the infrastructure and the venues, and that seems to be another big focus of this plan. What are you guys recommending here when it comes to the venues and facilities aspects of tourism in Albuquerque?
I think when we looked at infrastructure, it's a couple of things. It's no doubt continue to maintain and sustain your existing venues, and JLL really reminded that you have to be continued investment into those facilities, but also a question mark around downtown. Like continued efforts that downtown is critical from a tourism standpoint. So continued focus from our community on downtown activation, on downtown experiences. If you're here for a meeting and convention, that meeting and convention lets out, what do you have to experience in downtown Albuquerque? And again, to some of those earlier conversations, what if you're downtown, you want some of those uniquely Albuquerque, those authentically Albuquerque experiences nearby as well. If not, you want to make sure that transportation to go to those various areas is really accessible. So there was everything from, and there's some pretty large projects discussed in the Destination Master Plan that no doubt would take, an agreement from state, city, business leaders that there's a belief in these investments are good for our city and for our state. They're bold. They're going to take, some significant resources, but it was identified by JLL and by our community, by the community leaders, that they needed to be in this plan. When you look with a 10-year vision, we need to be discussing these projects.
I'm curious, I saw a multi-use sports venue stadium is part of this plan. We know there's been a lot of conversations, a lot of back and forth over getting something like this built in Albuquerque. When it comes to tourism, how impactful could a new stadium or a sports venue like that be on what you guys are trying to bring to Albuquerque?
So no doubt, I think, again, you want to think about, and I'm going to talk specifically about the downtown area generally. We have to think about, when we think about that activation and that vibrancy, we have to think about what's going to draw visitation from our own locals to this region. That volume of activity on a routine basis. So I think that thinking of them as a demand generator is one component. What is a local going to visit frequently that's going to create that economic activity and those opportunities? And then two, what does a traveler, what could we maybe use? What JLL really underlined in that I think is a little bit different, is that it's multi-purpose, that it's not not narrowly focused on one area, that it is something that could, in the proposal that they have, is that it would be used for everything from entertainment to sports events and sports tourism to a business, more of like a meeting and a conference. So it would be very flexible in the way that it was built and the opportunity, so that you're programming not just double digits of dates over a calendar, that you were really in those maximizing the opportunity there.
How crucial is it for cities to really invest in some type of tourism infrastructure?
Yeah. Think about yourself arriving, whether it's by plane or or however you're arriving into a destination. And if it's not all walkable, which Albuquerque has all sorts of opportunities beyond just walkable, if there is not an easy way, easy to navigate way for you to get to a different part of town, for you to go see something different, you're probably not going to do it, frankly. Right. So we had a lot of great conversations, both with public transportation agencies and others, about unique opportunities to move visitors around, give them opportunities to go from, let's say, downtown to another part of the area, or the kind of facilitation of getting from one part to another that would be easy. So infrastructure is important. The good news here is there was a lot of receptivity to it. I think the plan really speaks to the fact that there's some details to be worked out and some things to experiment with. So some routes to test going forward. And we think there's a good basis for that and interest in that happening.
The Destination Master Plan does include a recommendation for a circulator shuttle throughout Albuquerque, something Armenta says is not a new idea. When you guys talk to tourists or you survey tourists, how often is transportation something that they comment on?
It's a frequent, it frequently makes the list. So, you know, and there are options. There are rideshare programs. There are other options in our community. But I think you have to think about moving a pretty large, you know, especially if you're hosting a pretty large meeting or convention, you have to think about that volume of travelers that you're prepared for. There's also the reality of you have everything from trying to experience one of our unique attractions at the Sandia Peak Tram all the way to historic Old Town, that distance between some of those experiences. And so just considering that. So I don't think, you know, that what I just described is a long-term thinking about that. And there may be some along the outskirts that you're not ever able to solve. You kind of get to one area and then the reality is you're going to have to take personal transportation to do that. But I do think along our core areas, between our core entertainment districts, that we could strengthen visitor transportation.
We're going to take another quick break, but when we come back, we'll share how a bigger tourism industry can foster a better city for everyone. We're talking about a 10-year plan here. Let's look ahead to the end of these 10 years. You know, what is the vision? You know, if everything in this plan goes according to plan, or, you know, a lot of these suggestions are incorporated, you know, what could tourism in Albuquerque look like in 10 years? Or what's the hope for tourism in Albuquerque?
I think it would be wonderful to say we've arrived and we're thriving as a tourism destination, and that we're really proud of what that experience looks like for travelers. When they come here, that confidence that we have and that comfort that we feel about what that visitor experience looks like. Again, that we're just a community that we know we've done a great job in that, and that we're thriving in the tourism industry. So I think there is this notion of when we think about the Destination Master Plan, I think it's important to think about tourism assets, and the way that we think about tourism assets, those equal quality of life for our residents. So the things that you know, what are you going to go out and do in the evenings and on the weekends and explore with your family and friends? Those are the tourism assets, and continuing to improve on that means that the quality of life in Albuquerque continues to improve. So there is sort of this circular notion of, if you know, starting with a visit, that if you have a place that people want to visit, then you have a place that people want to live. And if you have a place where people want to live, you have a place that people want and need to work. And if people want and need to work there, then it's where business invests, and it's through that business investment and resident investment that you're back kind of to the visitation. It's a place that people want to visit. So how it all works together, and it begins with a visit, is really important to keep in mind from an economic development standpoint, that nobody ever moves to a place or moves a business to a place that they haven't visited before. It's that, you know, that visit can be the first date of economic development. Keep in mind, word of mouth matters. The way that we talk about our community, the way we share our community, that's our brand identity. And so as locals, we are we're sharing that with the world. And the more that we can keep that in mind, one, to celebrate the wonderful community we live in, and then this plan is a perfect example to continue to work on making it an even better place, an even stronger place.
I love that last note. Thank you, Tanya, so much for joining us in studio to break this all down for us. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it very much.
That's all we had time for this morning, but there is a lot more to unpack and visit Albuquerque's Destination Master Plan. You can find a link to it on their website. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next Sunday morning with another Eye on New Mexico.